On District Wire News, Penn State University rocked by scandal. We'll go there for the latest update. And we'll take a look at how American University dealt with scandals over the last 2 decades.
And more young people are moving to the district in search of jobs in this bad economy. But why DC? Our reporter has the details. District Wire News starts right now.
Good evening, I'm Julie Grace Brufke.
And I'm Sarah Parnas. The Penn State football coach accused of sexually abusing young boys has been released on bail. He's been told to stay away from children, but his house is right next door to an elementary school. CNN's Mary Snow has more.
When he was charged with 40 counts of sexually abusing children, Jerry Sandusky was released on $100,000 bail. One condition, the former Penn State defensive coordinator was told not to go near children. But take a look where his house is located. This is the playground for Lamont Elementary School. Right over here is Jerry Sandusky's house, and from his back porch, he has a clear view of it. The administrators at the elementary school say local police reached out to them following Sandusky's arrest. The district superintendent is quoted saying the school, which runs through the 2nd grade, has taken additional administrative action to ensure our children are safe. To be clear, Sandusky's never been accused of harming random children. Rather, he is alleged to have molested young boys after developing close relationships with them through Second Mile, the charity he founded. Sandusky's maintained his innocence. The road to his home is blocked off, and private property signs on his lawn went up this weekend after police say a cinder block was thrown through a window. Nearby neighbors question why he's out on bail.
It baffles my mind.
I think presumption of innocence, we all like to believe in that, and we do in this country, but I think there's a level of protection that a neighborhood and a community is entitled to.
Melissa and Carl Anderson have 2 little boys. Carl was such a fan of Sandusky's at one time, he had an autographed limited edition copy of Sandusky's book, Touched.
For me at least, it alternates between anger and sadness, really. I mean, it really is a loss of kind of community, wholesale community innocence.
Have you seen more police here in the last week?
Yes.
The Andersons, for one, want to see a stiffer bail. And now a new revelation about the judge who set the bail. The judge's former law firm listed her as a volunteer for Second Mile. CNN's legal analyst, Jeffrey Toobin.
The judge certainly should have raised the issue, disclosed her connection to Second Mile, so that the parties in the case could decide whether they wanted to ask her to recuse herself.
Mary Snow, CNN, State College, Pennsylvania.
This scandal has been a PR disaster for Penn State University, but American University has dealt with some scandals that have made national headlines. Jade Ryan is live in the studio to talk about how the university is prepared for future scandals. Jade?
As the sexual abuse scandal at Penn State continues to unfold, American University faculty and staff remember a number of scandals at AU over the past couple decades, and the ways in which the university handled them. In the spring of 1990, Richard Brunson abruptly resigned from his position as American University president. Virginia police were investigating a series of obscene phone calls made to women advertising babysitting services that were traced back to Brunson's private university telephone line. Brunson eventually pled guilty to 2 misdemeanor charges of making obscene telephone calls from his office. He was sentenced to 60 days in jail, but instead spent 3.5 weeks at the Sexual Disorders Clinic at Johns Hopkins University, where doctors said his actions may have been linked to Brunson being sexually abused as a child.
When anything like that happens, when there's anything sort of unseemly about a character who's especially the leader of an institution, it sort of washes over the whole institution. And so I think AU had some, damage control and reputation repair to build on.
3 years later, in 1993, American University hired him back as a professor in the physics department. He retired 5 years ago and was granted Professor Emeritus status, the same status Jerry Sandusky was granted after he retired from Penn State's football program. A Professor Emeritus status often gives professors continued privileges after retirement. This was how Sandusky was able to keep an office and have continual access to the locker rooms and campus. Another scandal happened in 2005 when Benjamin Ladner was forced to resign as American University president after he was investigated for misspending university money on wine, expensive restaurants in D.C. and abroad, and chauffeurs who ran personal errands, according to USA Today.
I think AU allowed a little bit of crisis creep to get in, so the scandal became the story about AU for far too long rather than the action taken to deal with it.
Recently, the university has changed some of its policies on sexual assault because of national media attention after a controversial article published in the Eagle last year.
That required a lot of people to want immediate action.
Daniel's position didn't even exist prior to the publication of the Eagle article, which just goes to show you that positive changes can arise out of scandals like the ones at American University and the current one at Penn State. Back to you, Julie Grace.
Thanks, Jade.
National unemployment for October was 9%, but in the same month, the Census Bureau says D.C. has attracted more young adults since the recession started. What jobs are out there for youth in the district? Laura Olson has the story.
Yesterday, President Obama took his jobs plan to Hawaii.
The single greatest challenge for the United States right now, and my highest priority as president, is creating jobs and putting Americans back to work.
According to the U.S. Census Bureau, in each of the last 3 years, 7,000 people between the ages of 25 and 34 flocked to D.C. in search of jobs. This is because, unlike much of the nation, businesses in Washington seem to be hiring. An American University senior transferred from the University of Mary Washington.
I actually transferred here because D.C. has a lot more opportunities for after you graduate, and Fredericksburg, Virginia is out in the middle of nowhere.
Since transferring, Samantha has had 2 internships with National Geographic and hopes to stay in D.C. after graduation. Career advisor Jennifer Carnegie says that the federal government sparks industries in Washington and builds job opportunity.
But I think students see opportunities to start their careers that they don't necessarily find in other cities across the country.
School communications senior Madeline Chateau began interning with City Dance, a local nonprofit, last year.
And then I got hired in the fall as a social media coordinator, and I'm part-time now. And they offered me full-time once I graduate if I would like to join their communications team as well as their advertising team.
Not all students are quite as lucky as Madeline, but if you keep on trying, then there should be something out there for you. Reporting from American University, this is Laura Olson for District Wire News.
Herman Cain's wife is denying sexual harassment claims against her husband. Gloria Cain told Fox News' Greta Van Susteren that the allegations are not true.
Hear such graphic allegations and know that that would have been something that was totally disrespectful of her as a woman, and I know that's not the person he is. He totally respects women.
4 women have accused Cain of harassment from his days at the National Restaurant Association. Despite the scandal, he is still leading most Republican presidential polls. The Cain campaign says donations have also increased as a result of the bad press.
The National Cathedral held their first service in 3 months yesterday. Officials closed the cathedral in August after a 5.8 magnitude earthquake shook the city. The historic church spent about $15 million to repair damages from the quake. Unfortunately for the cathedral, these damages are not covered by their insurance policy.
A D.C. woman is in critical condition after being stabbed by her husband following a domestic dispute. The attack took place near the National Cathedral on Saturday evening. The police have the man in custody, and doctors expect the woman to survive.
Officials say one D.C. man is dead today after a shooting in Northeast Washington. Police found the man on Edgewood Street around 2:30 in the morning on Monday. The man has not been identified, and there are no suspects in the case.
D.C. police think they know who's responsible for the shooting near the White House this weekend. Police issued an arrest warrant for the 21-year-old Oscar Ortega for carrying a dangerous weapon. The shooting happened Friday night when 2 cars were speeding near the National Mall. Nobody was injured.
Coming up after the break, Congress in a deadlock. The deadline for the supercommittee to cut the budget deficit is fast approaching. We have a full report and an expert in the studio to discuss what will happen if an agreement isn't reached.
And we'll tell you how the recent NBA lockout is affecting the future of NBA hopefuls here at American University. Stay with us.